Hello! Okay, so it's 2023 and everyone's rightfully talking about all the new 2023 slot car releases that are coming out. However, let me hang on to the littlest shred of 2022 for one little moment longer because I need to introduce you to this as it's finally showed up. Now, I'll still stand by my original statement that the Ferrari 512M by Slottit was my most anticipated car of 2022. However, this was in a very, very, very close second place, and it's just unbelievably cool. I've been waiting for this all year. I've never checked the selling sites so often, waiting for this car to come out. And as it happens, I actually missed the Evolution version. I had to buy a bloody digital one. I didn't even have a digital track. It's the only way I could get hold of this car. So I'm clearly not alone in this. A lot of people clearly really like this car. But yes, I'm so pleased I finally got one. It took to the next year to actually get hold of one, but here it is. Now, I wanted this car for a couple of reasons. One, and the main reason, it's just insanely awesome. I mean, look at it. That is just simply the coolest car I think I've ever seen. But two, also, I love a car with a story. I love a race car with a story especially, and this one certainly delivers. So I don't think it would be fair to talk about this car without giving a little introduction to its history and why and how it came about. So let's get it out and take a little look. And here she is in all her glory. Let's just focus that in a bit. There we go. This is the Mercedes 300 SEL, which competed in the 1971 Spa 24 Hour. And this is a very important car. Now, a lot of you will know that this is a very important car. You'd have seen it about and whatnot. But for those of you that don't, this car was made by AMG. And if it hadn't been for this car, a lot less people would probably know about who AMG are. Now, AMG were building cars before this. They built customer cars for racing. However, this customer came along and asked them to build this, his Mercedes 300 SEL, into a car that he could race and compete in Spa and other such races. AMG, being AMG, took on the challenge and they did quite a good job of it. They bored the engine out. I know this is advertised as being a 6.3, but I believe the actual race car was bored out to a 6.8. It made an obscene amount of horsepower compared to what it was originally. I think it doubled up to about 450 or something. They did some lightweight work to make it a bit lighter. Because essentially this was a big old limousine in the day. This is like someone turning up with a Maybach and saying, I want to take this to the Nürburgring 24 Hour to compete against some, Porsche 911s. Can you do that for me? It just doesn't happen. So unsurprisingly, when this rolled in at Spa, it drew a fair bit of attention for the right and wrong reasons. People thought it was ugly, thought it was a bit of an oddball car, and hence the name came about of the Red Pig. So, rather unaffectionately, this is what this car is known as. And the boys at AMG had definitely worked their magic on this car, and despite the not so welcoming response that it got as it turned up in the paddock, this car not only went on to win its class, but went on to finish second overall in the race. Allegedly, the only reason it didn't win is because it had to refuel so many bloody times, because it's such a stonking big motor. But it certainly silenced the critics and put AMG on the map and in the headlines. Mercedes later went on to not only use AMG branding on a lot of their cars, but eventually went on to own AMG. They bought it. So yeah, I don't think a lot of that would have happened if it hadn't been the exposure they got from this awesomely ugly car. It's just so cool. Now, as with all the greats, the real-life car was also gone far too soon. It did compete in a few races in a couple of different liveries, but it retired from racing quite quickly and found its way allegedly in the hands of a aviation company who saw a big car, which was very powerful and very fast, as an opportunity for testing landing gear. So I don't know what exactly happened, but needless to say, the car met a very untimely demise at the hands of the aviation firm. However, I believe in 2006, Mercedes did do a full nut and bolt not restoration, nut and bolt recreation, that's the word I'm after, of one of these cars. They found all of the original plans, so it's literally exactly as it would be. So you may well have seen one of these going around various historic meets and racetracks and things more recently. It's not the original car, but it is as close to it as you're ever going to get. So yes, the beautifully ugly AMG Mercedes 300 SEL. It's certainly earned its place in the history books, and it's certainly earned its place in my collection. This is a very, very cool car. So firstly, I just want to thank Carrera for actually making this car. There's not a million liveries you can do with this, so it's quite brave to bring out a whole new mold just for this. But well, if the sales are anything to go by, and how easy it is to get hold of one, or should I say how difficult it is to get hold of one, they're certainly selling, so shouldn't be a problem. From what I can gather, I think there's probably 3 authentic liveries they can get out of this. I think there's the yellow one that's also in shops at the moment, and I believe there's a silver version that raced for a little while. But other than that, I'm sure that probably is Carrera. They'll get a few fancy liveries out of it and a few other bits, but it is obscenely cool. You know I have an obsession with spotlights, so this is just ticking all the boxes for me. Now, I'm not the biggest Carrera collector. I've got a few Carrera cars, but not many. I've got nothing against Carrera cars at all. I think the detail on them's fantastic. They tend to be quite resilient. They take a few impacts. The main reason I don't have them is because they don't tend to play well with others. Because especially I like to run them magless. They're quite heavy cars traditionally, and they don't keep up with other things. Well, certainly don't perform in the same way that other manufacturers' slot cars do. So they're fine the whole time you're racing them against other Carrera cars, but yeah, in a mixed field, they don't tend to do too well. But I certainly had to make an exception for this. It's pretty standard Carrera configuration underneath. You got their outrageously huge guide blade and their unique pickup design. I'm sure it'll also come with the Scalextric compatible guide blade in there, in the box somewhere, which is normally the little red one in this back. Obviously, Scalextric track is has a slightly thinner rail configuration, so you can't use this guide. It'll just get stuck in the corners. But that just pulls out and you can put the other one in, and that will all work. So that's fine. Inline configuration, pretty standard. Never seen a Carrera that isn't really like that. And yeah, the guide's quite far back, so handling wise, again, it's not going to be ideal, but it's a one-piece body. So my theory with this is I can see a lot of this going in the bin because I want to use this car. I'm not one for shelf queens. As beautiful as this is, it's not going to spend its life on the shelf. I want to get this working. I want to get it running with the Camaros and everything else of this world, and get it out on track and use it as it should do. Hopefully these little spotlights here will last, because look, they're rather precariously positioned on these corners. One big impact, I can see them pinging off into the distance. But yeah, that's it. So let's open her up and take a look. Like I say, we have a one-piece body with this car, so it will accept a 3D chassis quite nicely, I think. This will lend itself to a little bit of extreme tuning, which I think is the route I'm going to go down with this. Like I say, I got nothing against Carrera cars, but getting them to work well with others is, you know, a lot of work. But let's have a look at what we got here. Got this digital chip nonsense, which I really don't need. So yeah, that can find its way to a new home. I mean, on paper, these things are pretty good. They've got brass bushings and everything. The other main issue with Carrera cars, and I'm not sure if it's going to be the same with this one, is the tyres. They have a notorious habit of turning to goop if you just ignore them for a little while. And getting hold of replacements, or turn to replacements, like slotted or NSR rubber that fits, is very difficult. You can get urethane tyres, things like that, but getting replacement rubber, it's very, very difficult. They have very specific hubs on these things that they're not really compatible with anything else. So yeah, the body shell, it's not the lightest, and a lot of the weight seems to be right up here. So again, not ideal, but like the original, there's room for improvement in here. I'd quite like to keep the lights being an endurance car, but there's lots of interior sections we can lose, cut through there and whatnot. We can still probably keep this whole interior as is, but just put it on a bit of a diet, lose all the bits that aren't important, aren't seen, and see how many grams we can get rid of that way. Because I don't want to kind of butcher this car completely. I want to keep all its features. It does have some lovely little details on it, and they all need to stay. So actually, one of the things I did hear about is, can we see inside there? I'm not sure I'm going to get the light to work, but apparently the dashboard in this does have a wood dash. Okay, so I've taken the interior out to see if the rumours are true, and yes, they are. Look at that. It's got a little wood trim dash, which is actually true to the original. Despite all the lightweight work that they did, replacing all the doors with aluminium ones and things like that, they did keep the full interior with wood paneling and all that kind of stuff. So that is a fantastic little detail. Look at the dials there. So yeah, top marks to Carrera for this, not only making this car, but making it authentically. That's really fantastic. For those of you wondering about the size of this thing, as you can see, it's a hell of a lot taller. We are we're narrow at the front for sure. The rear track is actually pretty similar. I'm going to show you that there. Lengthwise, yeah, the wheelbase is a lot longer, and let's go that way. There we go. Can't fit these things in, so big. So yeah, it's a bit longer, much longer wheelbase. But yes, it's a hell of a lot taller. Look at that beast. That's hilarious. So yeah, it's comparable rear track and kind of size-wise with muscle cars of that era. But yeah, just a hell of a lot taller, and fair bit heavier as well. I will get around to weighing this at some point. Obviously this is the digital one, it's got the chip in it and the magnet and everything, so once all that's all out, it'll lose a bit of weight, but yeah. So there you have it, one of the best cars of 2022 to be acquired in 2023. Who knew? But yep, it's finally here, and I finally got one. I will get around to running on my track. I need to give it some love, give it some lube, take the magnet out, have a look at that digital chip, see if I can strip that out of it before I do anything, swap the guide over so it's compatible with my thing. So I won't get around to that today, but in the not too distant future I will try and do that, and I'll show you some laps of it running around my circuit. But for now we'll just have to enjoy it in all its static beauty, and once again tip our cap to Carrera for producing such a crazy but awesome piece of history.